30, December 1st. The Urban Design Commission is called to order. If you could note the roll, Kevin, and the excused absences. I guess we'll look for an approval of last time minutes. Craig, motion for approval. Is there a second? Seconded by Lois and Tom and Russell. Okay. Before we get into our agenda, I'm going to invite Stefan from the city's IT department to just give us a rundown of the virtual meeting protocol.
Thank you. All right. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the commission, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video while you're speaking. In this meeting, panelists have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Panelists also have the ability to add pronouns after their names if they choose. Please do not alter the current naming convention. Simply add text after your name. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, please use the raise hand feature when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on commission members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. Staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair Goodart, floor is yours.
Wonderful. Let's see. Kevin, would you like to just give us a quick agenda overview?
Yes.
Before we get into item number 1?
Sure. Happy to do a quick walkthrough of tonight's agenda. The first two items, well, let's see, 2 and 4 are public hearings related to signage. Item 3 is requested to be referred the applicant's requested referral of item 3, 824 South Park Street to the December 15th meeting. Moving ahead, the next public hearing is 2860 East Washington Avenue. This is approval for a project that the Urban Design Commission previously approved. This is revised mural details that the Urban Design Commission requested come back to the commission. So that is public hearing item number 5. Item number 6 is a public hearing. It's a public building and for the new fire station number 6, and it's also in Urban Design District 1. So that is the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. Moving through the rest of the agenda, UDCA has 2 adjacent PDs. You saw informational presentations. This is out in Grandview Commons, Gemini Drive and Halley Way, abutting sites, and both are before you this evening for an advisory recommendation to the Plan Commission as planned development zoning projects. Number 9 is a signage approval request in the downtown core zoning district. Chair had asked if I could do a quick overview before that one gets started. When we get to that one later this evening, I'd be happy to do that. Number 10 is an Urban Design Commission appointment to the High Crossing Design Review Board. Again, I can speak to that very briefly before we take up that item, which is number 10. And then finally, the last item of regular business tonight is an informational presentation at 322 East Washington Avenue. This is St. John's Church and the redevelopment of that site. And it's an informational presentation. Note there is one other item. That's item 12 for 222 through 232 East Olin Avenue. As I noted to the commission, that this item is being requested for indefinite referral at this point. So there'll be no further discussion on that one tonight. Then finally, as discussed and mentioned at the last secretary's report, item 13 is a question. Does the commission want to return to in-person or remain in a virtual format in the coming year? And so we can talk about that. That's under business by members. And that is the quick overview of tonight's agenda.
Okay. Before we go any further then, could I have a motion to refer items number 3 and 12 to an unspecified future date? Tom?
I'd move to refer both items.
Thank you. Seconded by Craig. Okay, so those are...
And Chair?
Yeah.
The referral for item 3 was to December 15th. That was the request.
Oh, specifically? Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll make it December 15th. Okay. I see from the list of registrants that we do have a public comment on our agenda that Alder Abbas is registered to speak about. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh,
Okay. I see you, Alder Abbas. Are you in the car driving? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Yeah, Alder Abbas, it sounds. Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Can you? All right. Good. Technology. I muted myself through the screen of the car, so I'm putting unmute on the cell phone and just noticed. Oh. All right.
Okay. First of all, you're not driving, right?
No, I am not. I parked the car.
Okay.
I'm going on my way to pick up the kids, and I have some other family commitments, so I won't be able to stick really long. But really want to talk on the Alla Deli project, which was approved when I was on a common council on a urban design commission. We approved that. The only thing was left was to review the art and on the facade, which is in front of us. I want to provide some feedback about community engagement on this particular art, as well as the process standpoint, what Ann Morrison and ULI did. So this particular art is really appreciated by neighborhood, and all neighborhood association and community members really appreciate the vibrancy and the colors and the concept. Also, the artist is local. His mother lived in Eaton Park, and Eaton Park have a rich history of art. We have a sculpture garden. We have butterflies in the entrance to Eaton Park. We now, with addition of this art, this will be also a great addition to the part of the neighborhood. And also during the festival, I was amazed to see how much ULI put an effort to get the words out. So they have their own booth, and during the day, whole day festival, starting from 12 p.m. till 8 p.m., over 1,000 people visited the festival, and the art was, they shared that art in their booth, so people have an opportunity. So many people seen that, and it was highly liked by community. So I will highly encourage my fellow commissioners to provide their encouragement and comments, and I fully supported this project and this art going on a facade of the building. So that's pretty much.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you all too, and I will see you again and get some cookies from you.
Okay. Don't let that you sway your votes, commissioners.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so we'll move into the body of our agenda here. I would like to just remind our applicants who are registered to speak that we have a very full agenda today, and we will really be enforcing the 3-minute limit on presentations. The commissioners have had a chance to look at all these applications, and certainly they'll engage you with questions as appropriate when your time has come to speak. That brings us now then to agenda item number 2, and Matt would just like to give us a brief review of that.
Thank you, Chair Goodhart. Hello, Urban Design Commission members. Matt Tucker, Director of the Building Inspection Division. What we have today is another return visit, first return visit of a referral for signage at 515 Penny Street. This is a residential building just off of Cottage Grove Road. If you recall, this was at the Urban Design Commission meeting earlier in the fall. We prepared a staff report that we provided to you, and it covered the revisions, and we also attempted to include some of the comments and that you folks had made, just so you could sort of concisely remember where you were at. The report from the UDC is also attached to Legistar. But as is the typical approach that we have with these things, is what I like to do is kind of walk you through the areas in these projects where the city staff still has some concern, or there's some decisions that need to be made. just to kind of give you the our initial explanation, the code as it applies, and some of the rationale, or an opportunity to ask about the rationale if you have questions about that. So with that, I'll start with that by saying this is a comprehensive design review for signage for this building. This is a Group 1 multifamily residential building. The signage allowances are pretty limited in these buildings because they're typically located in residential type areas or areas that are surrounding other residential, and the impacts of signage can be greater on neighboring properties. And also their needs for identification don't tend to be equal to maybe commercial places or employment places. They're not quite a destination from that perspective. So the first matter that was left unresolved related to, there were 2 signs located inside the courtyard. And the way this site is accessed is there are drives from the 2 streets on the north and the west to parking facilities. And the entrances to the buildings are from a courtyard that is accessed from the east. The Commission had previously recommended support for the signage and I think they were leaning towards those signs being non-illuminated, and the staff is fine with that recommendation if that's where you'd like to go. The next sign type is along Penny Street. This is one where similarly a canopy style sign is proposed facing Penny Street. Back in earlier this year, we talked about how that the floor plan of that space is stairs up to a locked door to a hallway. It's not an entrance. We had some concerns about that sign being functional appropriate. The Commission, as part of its deliberation, talked about how really the best place for signage would be at the corners of the building where those driveway entrances were, because those seem to be the places where traffic is going to best flow into the site. So our recommendation on that sign is not to approve that sign. We don't believe the standards are met for that sign. The final sign is a replacement for a sign that the Commission had concerns about. There's previously a projecting sign proposed at the roundabout that has been dropped. The idea now is to place a sign that's effectively kind of like numbers. They're naming this like 515, which is its address-ish, but it's branded numbers, if you will. And that sign is located relatively high on the wall, but it is at the location near the corner of the entrance, the ideal location for the sign. The staff recommendation is that the sign be lowered down to the maximum height. We didn't feel there was justification for that sign to be as tall. I think principally it was related to this site being visible from Cottage Grove, and that's going to change real quick when the next building is built. And this residential building and sign should blend in nice to the area at the maximum 12-foot height. Those are our recommendations. I think Allison Novitsky is going to speak to the designs and probably walk you through what it looks like. If anybody has any questions, I can be available after she does her bit.
I think we're on. I think so. Can you guys hear us?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is Allie with Sign Art and Dan here as well. So I will, if you want to page down as to the next page, we're aware of where the site is. So as Matt was speaking, the interior courtyard signs, it is important that these are illuminated to Rooter Bush and for wayfinding purposes, because as you can see, as you walk into the courtyard there are 2 different entrances. There are going to be 2 different mailboxes for, mail deliveries and, for everybody there to access those areas. So it's important that it's lit for the customer. And then the address number is higher up on the building off Cottage Grove Road. If you continue on, I would like to show that design. So if you go up one there, so the preferred mounting location is the left there, higher up on the building. And as you can see the night view, it is illuminated as halo. And so it's a muted light, but it is important for these letters to be higher up on the building so you can see it from Cottage Grove Road. We did provide the alternate location there at the lower, like the staff said. So if you go down, we've also provided a non-illuminated option. So this is we would really like the illuminated option, but have also provided the non-illuminated option here at the 2 install heights. And then if you go down another page, please. Here is the 515 off of Penny. We have provided the preferred option, which is the illuminated option, and the alternate option, which is non-lit. It is important to have this entry address because it is on Penny Street, and it's the only entrance that you can go into for tenants and everybody else. It is going to be a locked entrance, but they do have access to go in there. And then if you go down one more page, here are the interior court signs. So again, there's a preferred option of illumination, and it identifies as the north entrance. And then go down one more page, we have a south entrance. So it really identifies, what entrance for people to go into, if it's the male people or visitors. And if you could go down one more page. This is the existing property that is kitty corner, and they are trying to match the existing signage here. They would like to stay, within their branded standards. Would really like to stay consistent with the signage from property to property because they are going to be sharing parking lot. And then is there another page after this one? As you can see here, there's some site photos. The upper left one is where the address letters would be up on the building, that green area. And as you can see, this car is blocking it if it is at the lower install location. And open to any questions.
Okay, why don't, if Dan is registered to speak and would like to speak, why don't you go ahead and then we'll open it up to the commission.
Yeah, and I'll be real brief here. Thanks everybody. And yeah, only comments we'd like to make are that I'd like to add to this is that we did take all of your comments very seriously. We did pull the projecting sign out of the proposal. And I think what we have shown here is we've removed some of the all of the the 515 at Royster to try to make this look less branded, if you will, and more simply for addressing and wayfinding. And also showing we have our preferred options of illuminated and then also the alternate options of non-illuminated for all of what we have proposed today. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so are there any questions of either the applicant or Matt? Or any comments? Christian? I can't unmute him. There you go.
Here we go. So directed towards the applicant, I'm not sure, and I kind of lean towards the city's position, why the need to have a number on the door on Penny. If it's a locked door, not an entrance to guests, presumably anybody coming in there as a resident, they know what the building is, they know what the address is. And my other question would be, if that sign were to go up there, and as well, the 2 interior courtyard signs, we were shown an option for illuminated, non-illuminated. I thought the last meeting we had with you, you had no preference, but now you seem to prefer the illuminated one. Yeah, I find the illuminated one that you have to, possibly be, kind of bright in a courtyard that's already illuminated with, building lights. Is there is there an option in there if they're lit for any of those over the door signs, both those two and the one on Penny Street, to be more of a, very modestly lighted, sort of a halo lighting? It doesn't seem like any of them would need to be as bright as they appear to be in these illustrations.
You guys can hear me. All right. This is Dan answering your questions. Yeah, an alternative option, we could do halo lighting for, we do show halo lighting, thank you, on this particular address. And if the commission would agree that halo lighting, they would like to see that for the other signs, we absolutely would be open to that for sure. And then to answer your question, why have an address on that side of the building if it's locked? We're addressing the building. I know this is a touchy subject, so I won't get into it in terms of why, but an address does need to go on there somewhere. And, the alternative is we could put vinyl on the transom glass. Yes, that is an option. We could do that. This is just something we feel would look more tasteful. Thank you.
Okay. Tom and then Lois.
Yeah, I was going to comment on the interior courtyard. If they insist on lighting to go to halo or backlighting, not face lit, that I would find a courtyard that is viewed by multiple residents with lights on all night, just annoying as hell. So, I wanted to confirm that the large address on the corner of the building was also backlit, and I can see that it is, or halo lit. I would prefer the lower position myself, but the halo lighting was the key thing. The Penny address, I don't understand its value or its necessity at all. Those are my comments.
Lois.
Thank you. I want to, sorry, I have to get back to my other image. Addressing the courtyard, the examples shown for the reference of the library and such are commercial properties, and this is residential, and in particular in the courtyard with the signage mounted above the canopy roof. It seems inappropriate, especially with the window right behind it and giving that resident the view of the back of a light. It seems that you have this nice canopy. Why not mount it on the canopy so you don't have this, you're seeing the back of the sign. And then also with that, I think you could limit or simplify those to just north and south. Everyone knows you're at the 515 at that point, and you're really just trying to, north and south entrance for anyone wayfinding inside. So I would be in favor of both of those changes, and whether it's lit or not wouldn't be as pertinent, because now you don't have somebody having that shine in their window. And the other one is, as far as trying to see the 515 from Cottage Grove, I think most people are using wayfinding. They're looking at a street sign, and then by the time they approach the building, they can see the address, and that's no different than any other commercial building that's a block off of a major thoroughfare. So those are my two comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we basically have kind of three areas of signage that Matt has described and offered a recommendation, and we've heard from the applicant. Anybody want to put forth a motion? Jessica?
Yeah, I'll make a motion and just go through them one by one for the courtyard signs to be mounted on the fascia of the canopy rather than above. And halo lit, if lit at all. So I guess halo lit, that will be my motion. The one on Penny Street, I would make a motion not to approve that. And then the sign facing Cottage Grove Road, I would make a motion that that be at the lower height and halo lit.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? I'm sorry, first of all, is there a second to the motion? Sorry. Tom, okay, any discussion on the motion? Christian?
I would just point out to Jessica and Lois, I believe the concerns about the back of the sign, if it was above the canopy, and maybe the applicants can straighten me out on this, but I don't believe that's a residence with those windows behind there. I think that's a stairwell.
Mm-hmm. You still see it though when you're coming down.
Sure, if that makes any difference in anybody's take on the proposal.
Okay.
I still think they should be mounted on the face of the canopy.
All right. Craig?
Just as far as the discussion, I was going to say I concur. I believe that was a really good suggestion that Lois had. I think it'll just look better. It'll blend in. It won't, if there is signs there, it can be a little more discreet and blend into the building and not be more of the commercial type look.
Okay. So if I don't see any additional raising of the hands, hold on, Matt, go ahead.
Just looking for some clarification here. So for the motion, is it for the signs inside the courtyard, the 515 and the north and south, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm seeing some nodding. Okay.
Yep. But below, not on top of the roof, but on the face of the canopy.
Okay, so they will project up. They'll be on the face and above. It'll be both because they just will go above part of the canopy. That's fine. You can do that. That's part of the exception to comprehensive design review. And then the other one is the exception to the height for the sign that's on the southwest corner. That's probably about to the bottom, about 10, and to the top, I don't know, what is it, 18 feet tall or something like that, right?
That's how I understood the motion, Jessica, that the option that was shown, the lower option, would be the one you were moving for approval. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Seeing.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know if we need to add in their clarification that they're halo lit.
Well, there was a backlit option, I believe, for that one. I don't have that on the screen. Let's see. We can see on the presentation the WL1. Right. I had another one. Night view, and it's backlit against the wall.
Oh, got it. Okay. Do we need to clarify anything backlit, or I guess I don't quite know what halo lit is versus backlit.
I'll pop in if you guys want. This is Dan.
Sure.
Halo lit is the technical industry term. We often hear people call it backlit. Halo lit is what we're showing here. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? No further discussion on the motion. Then by unanimous consent, the motion passes for approval with the conditions. Thank you very much. Number 3 was referred. That moves us to item number 4, which is 825 East Washington Avenue. This is also a comprehensive design review presentation.
Registered in support are Andy Inman, Jennifer Koster, Aaron Schmillen, and Josh Wilcox.
Okay. Whoever would like to go first, you're welcome to start anytime.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Andy Inman, and I don't know if staff is providing a report at all on this, but really what I'll do is kind of referencing the staff report that was included in your package is just focus on the couple signs that are questionable or objectionable with staff. The package you see in front of you right now is the sign package for the Moxie Hotel. This was reviewed and approved, it seems like forever ago, but I guess it was last year for overall design approval. So we're coming back to you with the sign package that identifies these 6 signs that we're requesting approval for tonight. If you want to just flip through the package, the 2 signs out in front of the Moxie include the wall sign there above the primary entrance along East Washington Avenue and a blade sign. The first one that was described there is supported for approval by staff. We'll come back to the blade sign in a moment. If you want to go to the next page. That is a depiction of the blade sign. Let's keep rolling through the other. And then this sign here, I believe staff is okay with it. They can certainly chime in if there still are questions about it, but it's the only location. This is actually a separate structure that will house auxiliary equipment, things like the generator, trash receptacles, things like that. So it's technically an auxiliary building that normally wouldn't be signed, but it's really the only location we can sign the presence of the hotel for guests arriving, primarily pedestrian arrivals from East Main Street. Then I think there's one more. Yeah, this on the left is a depiction of the ground sign. I'll come back to that. That's out in front along East Wash. And sign number 5 there is signage that would be on the side of the building that would identify, it's a wall sign that would identify right there, location to a walk-up food menu window for pedestrians to come up and order food at the food window. And then I think there's one more. We'll come back to this ground sign. One more sign. There you go. And this is at the exit. Guests would see Moxie is kind of a playful brand. So rather than saying, exit or something like that, it says play on. That's what guests would see as they're departing the site. And then the other side, what you'd see from the street is do not enter, because that exit along East Main Street would be just a one-way exit. So those are the 6 signs, and 4 of them I think we're all on the same page. The 2 that I thought we would focus on are the 2 signs out in front, the blade sign and the ground sign. Really what we were trying to do, we met with staff and again, I think had a productive meeting on some things that we were doing that were more objectionable. We had initially proposed signage that was up higher on the building that would be more visible as you approach the hotel from East Washington Avenue. It's really the only location that you'll have a prominent view as you approach the hotel from the east along East Wash. So we felt it was important to have something there, but that was objectionable by the staff. So what we really kind of worked through is these 2 locations. and you can see them there on the building shown on the elevation. The first one is the ground sign number 4 that's identified. So that is the sign that has Moxie Hotel and underneath that restaurant that's shown right below. If you want to show that with your cursor. Oh, other one to the left. There you go. And then the second one is the blade sign that up above that. Sorry, there you go. Right there. And I think staff's point is, do we need both of them? And we do think there's a value to having both of them. So that is what we are requesting tonight.
Okay, thank you. Other registrants from the applicant side wishing to speak?
We don't have anyone else to speak, but our architect, our project manager, and Aaron from Persona Signs are available for questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, Matt, you indicated that you would just like to have a brief follow-up before we open it up to the commission.
Yes, actually, I'd like to speak, and then I'd like to afford Mr. Inman an opportunity to respond after I speak, just so he has the last word. So yeah, this is a comprehensive design review, and what's also unique about this project is this is located in Urban Design District number 8. So we have a couple of overlaying series of regulations that the commission has spent quite a lot of time over the years being very thoughtful to, as the renovation of the Capitol Gateway corridor of East Washington Avenue has effectively been treated such as an extension of the downtown. Signs high on buildings have not been approved. Signs that are down to a pedestrian scale, appropriate with the design and the opportunities for signage on the building, are often the default. And those of you that have been on the commission for quite a while know that there's a lot of sensitivity that's gone in, and I think it has resulted in a very well-signed area that's abutting a 6-lane divided highway with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So to get started with the request, give me just a sec. And if you could, Kevin, could you maybe pull up the site plan or the designs? Oh, okay. Let's start with the principal issue I think that we have wanted to just point out to the commission is that the code has a requirement that when you have a site that has both projecting signs and ground signs, that one of those two signs shall not exceed 12 square feet. The idea behind that, the philosophy behind that is that those type of signs both present opportunities for visibility from traffic, and the question of necessity of both being at potentially larger sizes, because both of them could be significantly larger than 12 feet if they were on their own. I think it's 20 or 30 square foot for the projecting sign, and it's much higher for potentially the size of the ground sign. It's a big building, and they're trying to convey a lot of information, and they're trying to convey it all along that south and west kind of corner of the site. And the thoughts that we had were there's just a lot happening right down there. And there was a question about sign clutter and appropriateness for both of the signs to be at a larger size. And it's really hard to see in those renderings. We might even be able, Kevin, to zoom in on those renderings. This is all the 1, 2, 4, 5. When you go to the elevation view from the southwest. Yeah, here. There's just a lot happening here. Obviously, this is like an impossible view because you're looking through the middle of the neighboring building and such. But this is where you run into the round style Moxie, which is I think about 16 square feet, and then the ground sign, which measures out to be also over the size. So you have the ability. We want you to make findings specific to how the standards are met, if you can, when you are talking about that, if you decide that these are appropriate. The last part that we have some concern about is, Kevin, can you go back to the site plan? Sign 6 at the back here. And if you could just, I don't know if the commission can see, but this is two-way traffic. This is enter and exit right here. The points of one-way traffic are along the south. There's a, that's a one-way. Thank you, Kevin. And then it turns into two-way again. And there are signs already. If you can zoom right in on the area where, right in kind of to the right, Kevin, you'll be able to see where the existing do not enter signs are. Yeah, and it's the right third of the site. You'll be able to see that. So there are signs already that our traffic engineering division has required in there that say do not enter. You can see do not enter. Trying to keep traffic from going opposite the one-way. So we think there's a conflict here when sign 6 says do not enter, but you clearly can enter, and there's actually parking spaces right there. So we think that sign should be removed from the sign package. And
Matt, can I address that? And you are correctly looking at the site plan. There are two-way arrows there. That is incorrect on our sign plan. That has been corrected on our actual site plan. Those signs or those arrows should both be exiting. So there is no, we don't want guests coming in, even though there's some parking space there. We don't want them entering from East Main and then running into a dead end situation there. So that is an error on the signage plan with the two-way arrows. It should be one-way exiting. So I think you bring a very good point if we had properly, if this was correct, but the arrows are incorrect.
so the problem is this is the design of the site plan. This is a reviewed and approved preliminary site plan from our city's traffic engineering division that shows two-way traffic there. They would have required a do not enter sign at that location if it indeed was designed to be a do not enter. So the concern I have is just this plan is not a final thing. And the city's codes wouldn't even allow two-way traffic, and we require its own do not enter sign there if that's the requirement.
Yeah.
So we should not, I mean, this is a matter that probably could be referred until the site plan gets polished up, because I don't even know really what traffic engineering is going to say about this being one-way or two-way.
Yeah, Jenny, you may be able to comment on it, and we don't have to belabor it. It's certainly not our intent to have two-way traffic there, and I think that's been addressed with traffic engineering, but the sign package did not line up with that. So we're fine, Matt. You know, obviously we will comply with the traffic engineering standards and make sure there is appropriate do not enter sign out at Main Street signage.
Okay, so Matt, is there anything else you'd like to add before we let Mr. Inman just kind of give us, his take on the items that are on East Washington Avenue?
Yeah, one last item. We did receive a couple of renderings very late. I think they just came in today, and I've seen these renderings before. They were probably the very first renderings or early renderings for the design of the building. They're really nice. They really give you kind of a feeling of what's happening with this building. Problem is they show a sign high on the building that has been removed from the sign package. So for the record, and it's very important that we say this and we include this, because down the road, people will find these graphics and they'll say, wait a minute, Matt, I see the UDC did see that there was a sign high in a building that there it is, that they did not approve. That you actually did not approve, and I just want it to be really clear for the record that that's not being requested, but that graphic has been submitted and it is part of the record.
And we'll stipulate to that, Matt, that was not the intent of including. It was just, and I can speak to it at appropriate time. But
I appreciate you giving us these. We really needed these graphics actually to show the building. It's wonderful. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, then Andy, would you like to just respond to how Matt briefed us on the what staff thinks is maybe a little bit of sign clutter there on East Washington?
Yeah, what I would suggest, just to button up the do not enter sign, we can verify that with traffic engineering and understand that our error certainly on the arrows shown on the sign plan. But what I would suggest, if you're comfortable allowing staff to make that judgment, if what I had described is in fact correct, which it certainly is, but verified with traffic engineering and Matt, I think we would ask that this be approved subject to that confirmation with traffic engineering. But let's talk sign clutter now on East Wash. And the purpose, maybe, Kevin, are you running the show here? If you could go to the rendering, I think that illustrates the point. And that was the only reason late today that we sent over this rendering, so that I think it would be very helpful, or it is very helpful for the commissioners to see the perspective. Matt is 100% correct. This is what you saw when I believe this is the one that was in the approval for the overall building massing when it came through UDC previously, or very similar to this rendering. So it is not intended to modify our application. The application, the 6 signs you see there, are what we're requesting tonight. Matt, could you go to I'm sorry, Kevin, could you go to the other rendering? There you go. So this is the primary view that our guests will see as they arrive from East Wash, coming from the airport to the hotel. There won't be a cut through here, so they actually have to pass the hotel, do a U-turn, and come back and approach to that one-way access point along East Washington Avenue. So that was our intent initially. We thought this would be the best wayfinding and place to sign the building. Because of the trees you see there, it's just going to be very difficult to see signage that's on the building. So as Matt pointed out, when we met with staff, the desire to maintain consistency of signage along this corridor, we worked out the compromise to what you see now. And from this perspective, you can see how the ground sign below the tree canopy will be more visible than the blade sign or projecting sign on the wall. That round sign, the lower ground sign, will be more visible from this direction. And then Matt, if you show the other render, I'm sorry, Kevin, if you show the other perspective. So this isn't perfect, but if you can envision approaching from the west on East Washington Avenue, we felt the projecting sign would be much more visible, both for pedestrians along the sidewalk as well as vehicles, kind of that marker to turn into the one-way entrance and access to the hotel. So we can appreciate the comments from staff. It is a difficult building to sign, given the fact of the food window, pedestrians, vehicles, transient guests, and all kind of approaching from this point on East Wash. So that's why we end up with a concentration there. That's all I had, and happy to answer any specific questions.
Okay. Commissioner, Matt, go ahead.
Just one piece of information. If the East Main Street do not enter, if it is indeed a one-way arrangement there needs to be a stop sign for the cars coming through the site on the building side. So I'm comfortable with the idea that Andy put forth about letting us kind of hash that out when that's all sorted out. But just for the commission's understanding, that backside there'll have to be a stop sign right at that point. It'll probably be incorporated into this ground sign somehow. Whatever traffic engineering would approve.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we've got those worked out with them, Matt, but I concur. We got to make sure that we're all on the same page here.
Okay.
Real quick, this is Jennifer, and I can confirm that the site plan does have a stop sign that went to city engineering.
Okay.
The one issue is just that it's a stop sign and it's this box that has this playful message on it, and that has to get sorted out. So.
Yep. We will do that.
Okay. But I think the big issue here is what we're going to see on East Washington Avenue. And like I said, staff and the applicant can clean up the flow of traffic, entrances, and prohibited egress and entry on Main Street. So let's see. I got a hand raised by Shane.
Thanks. Quick question for Andy and the applicant team. So the site wall that was in the one rendering and had kind of the scripty pink lettering on it, is the wall there anymore? And my understanding is that that is not a sign proposed in this package. So just maybe a little clarification on that one item.
Yeah, and that's what Matt was making very clear, and we are absolutely agreeing with. This rendering is not intended in any way, shape, or form to be approved for signage. So you're correct that is not what we are proposing. It was only added, just because I thought it'd be helpful given some of the staff comments to understand the perspective on that corner.
Okay, good. Yeah, don't mean to lead us down a rabbit hole, but it's just important for me in evaluating those signs to know like whether that site wall is there or if that's part of the equation. I think long story short, my opinion is that the blade sign is probably more effective. I think the issue with the trees is really more of a rendering perception. I don't think that's actually an issue in real life. And I think there's a lot of other blade signs along the East Washington corridor at that height that I'm never like craning my neck to try to see what the building was. It's always pretty obvious to me. So I prefer that. And I would prefer then to not have other things kind of cluttering up the site. If this ground sign is just a standalone kind of another object to be placed out there. I would maybe feel a little differently if it was still something kind of a part of the composition of the site design and that wall that formed the patio. But to me, it seems like that ground sign, so the one on the lower left here, feels unnecessary out of all the other ones occurring on East Washington. That's all for now.
Thanks. Lois and then Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Shane. I think the two signs at the front are, cluttery. I was actually going to go the opposite though, and I prefer not to have signage attached to buildings, but I see the possible necessity for it for view. So I would say for the applicant to choose one or the other. But as far as the other signage, I think it all meets in the requirements as far as appropriateness, with the exception, and I'm going to out myself as one of the non-hip people, but the do not enter and play on. I think we should also be cognizant of the fact that Madison has a lot of people that don't speak English as their first language, and sometimes those kind of signs are confusing, especially when there's a stop sign and another kind of do not enter. So I think any place where you have a sign that is going to give somebody permission to go out into an intersection or to go the wrong way, I think it needs to be super clear and be a little bit more in keeping with traditional things. So I'm not cool, but that's That's my opinion. And so that's, I think the other signage looks great, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, play on.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was just wanted to confirm the proposed monument sign on East Wash would be to the west of that sort of retaining wall, or that, and rise above it. Is that okay, that helps. Okay, so yeah, so it is on like the entrance side. So that and the blade sign, and then the Moxie on the front, that is all very, very tight. I would agree with Lois and others, one or the other, whichever they think gives them the highest visibility. But the two does feel cluttered in my mind. So thanks.
And I believe from what Matt said, if they went with one or the other, that could then have a larger area.
Yeah, and I actually like the scale of the blade sign attached to the building. I would hope they wouldn't feel the necessity to make it any larger. I actually think the ground sign is the more obtrusive of the two, particularly if it's going to cast a shadow or it's going to rise above that nice enclosed patio. It seems obtrusive in that area to the other functions that are going to happen on that patio, if that's going to be outdoor eating for the restaurant. I find environmentally, I think having the higher sign on the blade sign would be preferable.
Okay. Craig.
Thanks, Cliff. I concur with what was said before. The choose one. The other item is, we're looking at the site plan that I think we should talk about is, if it is one-way flow and we don't want people entering from Main Street, I would actually discourage any signing. That's a complete exit. I don't think we want to advertise that as an entrance or as a place or destination, which that's what signage is for. So I think if they were looking for signage on the south side or Main Street, we should have a distinct purpose for that. Otherwise, I just see it as more clutter. Again, especially if you don't want that as an entrance. So if it is an exit only, it's a stop sign, we have do not enter signs. I think there should be justification for that location sign there, because it's not an entrance.
Yeah, and I think traffic engineering will dictate there be some standard signage there if it's not an entrance. All right. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that a little bit. We will have guests parking at the Livingston ramp, so I think it is important for pedestrian traffic that does have that pedestrian sidewalk, if you will. It's shown in the hatching to know that this is where they enter to get to the hotel. And Lois, I'm going to disagree with you. I do think you're hip and cool, so I think you're underselling yourself on the play on.
Okay, see if that curries any favor when it comes time to vote.
But what I was going to say on that sign is there will be a stop sign and more of a traditional not ASTM, AASHTO compliant signage there for the stop sign to make sure that that's recognizable. The last thing I'd point out on the East Wash side, I think in the packet there is some examples of neighboring signs, and at the Gephardt building, we really tried to mimic what they were doing with very similar blade signs, some wall signs, as well as the monument sign.
Okay, Russell.
Thank you for the presentation. There are some very nice looking things happening here. I just wanted a question to the applicant. Are any of these signs not illuminated? Is everything here proposed illuminated?
Aaron, can you confirm that they are?
It's difficult to tell, because I think the clearest way to tell are some of the details showing the electrical construction.
Yeah, I think they're all.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you, Aaron.
I apologize. I forgot to hit unmute there. Yes, I can confirm all signs would be illuminated. And any other questions regarding the illumination, I can definitely answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I do have one question then. Kevin, this is on page 2 of the proposal, the round blade sign. I assume that the depth of that shown in the elevation of the building is relatively accurate. The construction detail on the right side of this sheet makes me think it's kind of this really thick, massive thing out there, and maybe that's just really zooming in on the detail or something. But is it just confirm that the blade sign, the depth of that blade sign is relatively accurate on that elevation?
And if you can still hear me, Aaron here with Persona, I apologize for that confusion. The layout is kind of hard when we get multiple signs in there. That the detail that you see on the right-hand side in the center there is for the Moxie sign above. The details for the construction of the blade sign would follow on the next page in regards to details on internal illumination as well as construction. So the overall depth of that sign would only be about 8 inches.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay. Anybody want to hazard a motion? Lois.
I'll try. I'll make a motion for approval of I guess we could go through each sign. The EATS sign and the sign on the back structure facing Main Street for pedestrians to know that that's Moxie Hotel. And for one or the other of the monument sign or the blade sign, but not both. And approval of this canopy sign. And we'll leave the sign number 6, the do not enter and play on, for discussion with traffic engineering in the city.
Okay, second on the motion? Okay, seconded by Tom. Great, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Craig?
Lois, just to confirm, sign number 6, are we specifically saying not approved at this time to come back, or you're saying for staff approval?
For staff approval with conjunction of traffic safety.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion or objections, then by unanimous consent, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Great looking project. All right, so that means, Matt, you can go home. Thank you for your help, as always. Number 5, 2860 East Washington Avenue, exterior building mural.
Speaking in support, we have Ann Newyar Morrison, Sarah Newyar, and Jacob Morrison.
Thank you very much. If you could make an effort to keep it to 3 minutes apiece, we would very much appreciate it.
I think we can do that. And if we don't, get out the hook.
Okay.
Here we go. So it's nice to virtually see you all tonight. I'm Ann Newyar Morrison with New Year Investments, the development company for Ella Apartments at 2860 East Washington Avenue. Sarah Newyar will be here speaking tonight. I have Jacob Morrison only if we have questions as to how this relates to the architecture, but it really doesn't involve the architecture tonight. We're here to talk about some art. Sarah and I are proud to wear hats at ULI. We're here tonight, though, with our development company, New Year Investments. And I know he's gone, but I just want to shout out to Alder Abbas and share appreciation for him joining us with his comments tonight. And just our appreciation for him and for all the neighbors who had interacted with us throughout this project and really taking the time to share with us so much about themselves and about this community. It's an awesome neighborhood. So we are here tonight for an alteration to previously approved development. It's a mixed-use building at the location of the former Ella's Deli restaurant. When it's complete, it will have 135 units of mixed income housing and 8,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. And these are some of the back views and a view of the mural on the front, which we'll get to in more detail. Slide, please. So again, UDC approved this with the mural concept in place in July 2020. We started construction in December 2020. Throughout 2021, we started work on actually designing that mural and thinking about what the art should look like. And then today we're requesting the mural approval. We're anticipating to install the mural in April, completing it in May, and having the residents move in June of 2022. Let's see. So we are working with Bill Rebholz, who is the artist for the project. And again, yeah, you can go to the next slide. Just a quick refresher. Some of you have seen these slides before when we came for our initial approvals. Quick refresher on kind of the context and adjacent buildings. It's on East Washington, and in the immediate area, you'll find plenty of bright colors, big signage, and even a few painted buildings. Slide. Please. Nearby, there's also this concentration of murals and artwork, which they're also referenced. There's a lot of great art in this neighborhood. Some of the pieces are shown here are on, anything from utility boxes to garage doors to Mural Alley, which is just across the street behind the Hawthorne Library. Slide. To orient you again, this is on the corner or near the corner of East Washington and East Johnson Avenue, and the building wraps around the Car X, which is on that corner. Slide. The muraled area is the portion of the building that's directly along East Washington Avenue. It's indicated here with that orange line, the kind of extents of it. Again, that mural, kind of the extents of the mural and the underlying material, which is brick, were part of the 2020 approved submission. And you can go to the next slide. This rendering shows the artist's work in that muraled area. As part of the artist process, Bill Rebholz, our artist, attended Eakin Park Neighborhood Association meeting, met with a subgroup of interested neighbors, and he physically toured the surrounding neighborhoods. Many of the themes from those meetings and tours were incorporated into his work here. In particular, neighbors spoke about their love of the diversity of the neighborhood, its kind of colorfulness, and surprisingly, really wanted to tell us about the connection to the natural areas within the neighborhood and to Starkweather Creek. In working through his design, the artist found himself thinking about individual figures and things as separate pieces of a quilt, all coalescing to make up the neighborhood. From the neighborhood input, he included a nod to young families with the duck and the duckling that you'll see in one corner. It's also a nod to Starkweather Creek. Overall, with the themes of his mural, he sought to convey kind of a caring, nurturing feeling, a feeling of coexistence, and a general sense of optimism. And I think he achieved what he was trying to convey. To address the gridded facade of this building with the window openings, he really looked at it a bunch of different ways. He ended up playing with kind of aligning to axes in some places and encompassing or weaving in and out of them in other spots. The point was to make it deliberate in playing with the windows and columns, but to avoid being too rigid. Again, he completed his work this summer when we submitted it in early fall through this process. As Syed mentioned, we did showcase the mural at our table at the Eakin Park Festival, where we did provide candy, but also received overwhelming positive feedback from the folks that were there. It's just a great festival. And in addition to kind of our neighborhood research outreach, we also reached out to several folks in the arts community, including City Arts Program Administrator Karen Wolf, who was thrilled with the art and said that we could share that she believes this represents, this piece would be an excellent addition to the city's overall arts landscape. Why don't we go 2 slides ahead to the bigger view of the mural? And I think I'll turn it over to Sarah Newyar, who can tell you a little bit more about the artist selection and the installation, and then Sarah and I can take questions. Perfect. Thank you, Anne. As we indicated in our 2020 UDC submission, 3 large-scale mural artists were approached to provide proposals for this artwork. Our team selected Bill Rebholz as our artist because of his extensive and national large-scale mural experience, the quality of his artwork, and his thoughtful approach to design, and his connection to Madison, specifically to the Eakin Park neighborhood. Bill grew up in the industrial neighborhood in Madison, attended Madison Public Schools, and went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design. He splits his time now between Minneapolis and Brooklyn and finds himself visiting the Eakin Park neighborhood frequently when he stays with his mom. Bill's mural commissions have included work for private developers and national companies such as Adidas and Warby Parker. In regards to the mural installation, the brick will be cleaned and primed before painting the mural. Preparation is key, which includes cleaning, priming, and using the right materials. The mural should be very low maintenance with minimal future upkeep. In terms of paint, the artist's preferred product is Benjamin Moore Aura for exterior work, which is Benjamin Moore's highest end product and one that the artist has had success with. While Benjamin Moore is purposely vague about actual lifespans, the true colors will likely deteriorate over time, and that expectation is that the art will likely require some minimal touch-ups in 15 years. The other product that the artist is considering is the Sherman-Williams Duration, which is also a high-end product, which he has used in the past, and Sherman-Williams store is our neighbor, just a couple doors down from this site. Brick is the most common subsurface for exterior murals. The artist is experienced with murals on brick subsurfaces, but also as building owners, we have our own experience with painted brick buildings, including the historic Lannon Hill House on Prodfit, which was completed with Benjamin Moore Aura product in 2014. And with that, I think it kind of concludes our presentation, and we're open to questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments, or suggestions, commissioners? You're speechless. Russell.
We stayed to 3 minutes.
Oh, yes, thank you very much for that. And thank you for the wonderful presentation. I really appreciate applying the artwork on the rendering as well. That's a very nice touch and very helpful for us. I just want to say I very much hope we can approve this. This is a very, I think, a very welcoming piece of artwork for people approaching our city on this important corridor. I really appreciate a lot of the themes that are coming through in some of this in this art piece. Just a kind of maybe a technical question. I don't know if we have an architect on board to maybe answer some of this, or perhaps the presenters know. It appears that there's a depth to the brickwork that interrupts the art in the middle, the vertical brickwork. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, this is Jacob Morrison. I was the architect in charge of the design for the project. There is 2 vertical columns that are 1 brick deep that stick out, and those are required by zoning to be there as part of the requirement that the no stretches be longer than 40 feet.
Thank you. I don't know that I have an issue with it, but I'm curious, is the art going to be applied to the sides of that 1 brick deep? It was not clear to me in that rendering whether the art kind of wraps up.
It is not on the vertical gray columns. It won't be on the very narrow sides of those columns. It'll simply be on the back kind of canvas area.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. I know we sometimes struggle with putting paint on brick because brick is such a beautiful material, but I hope we can make an exception for this one. Very much appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica, you had your hand raised, but do you still want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if we could cover the whole building in the mural, but I decided that's a dumb question.
That we thought we were being relatively unprecedented here, but that would certainly be yes, even more unprecedented.
So we've already approved the idea of painting the mural on the building, as you may recall. So, we're really looking at this presentation as, the mural content, color, composition, that kind of stuff. Lois, and then Christian.
Thank you. It's beautiful, and I was going to make a motion for approval. And I also want to say I appreciate all the extra detail about the materials and everything. So unless Christian had something else to say, I was just going to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Before we go to Christian, would somebody like to second? Okay, seconded by Russell. And then Christian, go ahead. Any discussion on her motion or questions? We got to get you unmuted. There you go.
Have me now.
Mhm.
No, I just wanted to, voice my avid support for this. I'm a big fan of this. It's been nice to see the smaller murals that have popped up around the city. I think in almost all cases, they're assets to the neighborhoods and communities, and I think it's about time we had some bigger versions of these. I count me as probably one of the rare people that was very sad when the Richard Haas mural along John Nolan Drive disappeared when Monona Terrace was built. That was a impressive project that was sad to see go, but this is nice, and I like it. I like the artwork. It's very playful, and I think it has a real jazzy rhythm to it. And I think it's it's going to be one of these things where people enjoy it and use it as a wayfinding thing. The fact that it's where East Washington and Johnson split off, used to tell people, turn at Johnson by the merry-go-round. Well, that's not there anymore, but now people can use the mural as a colorful signpost there, and I'm a big fan. I can't wait to see it finished.
Okay. And I'm sure the applicants really appreciate all of our compliments and love for this, but I think what they're really looking for is for us to vote and approve this. So without any any other additional hands raised or further discussion, by unanimous consent, you have your mural, and we can't wait to see it when we drive down the street. Thank you very much. Okay, number 6, 825 Badger Road, Fire Station numbers. I'm sorry, 825 Badger Road, Station number 6.
Speaking in support is Ryan Frank from OPN Architects. And then registered in support and available to answer questions, we have Amy Scanlon, Kevin Yeska, and Scott Avery.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. This is Ryan Frank with OPN Architects. You can go to the next slide. So we'll just be presenting the design for Fire Station 6. This is a remodel of existing Fire Station 6 at the corner of Badger Road and Perry Street near Park Street. You can see that here in the context map here. The belt line is directly to the south. This is a heavily utilized facility. The city of Madison has taken over the town of Madison, and this Fire Station 6 then receives calls in that area. So they've greatly expanded the number of calls that they have, and there's a great need to improve the facility and expand it for future growth in this area and in the station, as well as promote better diversity in the workforce at that station. If you go to the next slide, this is just a zoomed in context of the existing site. It borders Park Street, the new Madison College to the So there's a commercial corridor along Park Street. And then to the west, this borders the residential area of the Burr Oaks neighborhood. Highly multifamily housing directly adjacent to it. Further away are more single family homes. Go to the next slide are some context photos for you. This is close to the south transfer point. As I mentioned, Madison College is directly adjacent to the east of the property. And then there's some multifamily and additional commercial spaces across the street with Central Hispano. Next slide. What we're proposing is that we are looking to allow the building to expand for future growth. The fire department is planning for a future second company. And so we need the building to be able to accommodate that now so that in the future, 10 years down the road when that may happen or 20, that they're not remodeling the building at that time. So it's already prepared for that. So that includes additional dorm rooms and spaces for staff. On the site plan here, it's a very tight site. It is very restrained. We have 22 parking stalls, 4 bike stalls. We do have handicap stalls as well as electric charging stations for vehicles here. There is a community room in the building. And so we're trying to expand parking to the greatest extent possible, knowing that there'll be a shift change of fire department staff, as well as possible community events that will need parking here. So we are expanding that along the east of the building. And then to meet the needs of the firefighters, we're looking to expand the building with an addition to the west edge towards Perry Street. That's a single-story addition that will house an apparatus bay and some support spaces that you'll see in the interior floor plan. Go to the next slide. All the water, stormwater is being captured within the site. We are utilizing pervious pavers in the parking area, and most of the grading on the site directs water naturally to the northeast corner of the site, which is the low point where we'll be collecting water in that area. So the parking lot will then sheet drain into that northeast corner as shown here. We have raised the existing parking lot 6 inches so that it is actually in line with the sidewalk to provide better drainage and grading of that area and directing water away from the building and moving water towards the northeast there. If we go to the next slide, this will be our landscape plan. We're developing the landscaping in a way that really just complements the architecture and the existing building itself. We are, as I mentioned several times, we're extending the building footprint and the paving area of the site significantly. So, we're trying to infill all those areas where we do have grass or greenery around the parking and providing a shading as well as screening of that parking area along the east. The firefighters do provide their own maintenance for their facility. So keeping in mind low maintenance plants and making a space that's really easy to maintain and minimizing weeds and growth in the future is really important to them, since that takes away time from them being able to serve their community. Next slide. Just a quick floor plan. As you see, this is the parking lot is to the right here. There's 2 entrances, one to the community room that will serve community events, voting. It can be rented by the community. There'll be accessible restrooms and an accessible comfort room within that area. There's then a separate fire department entry that we've added that'll be designated strictly for the fire department only, so that there's kind of a separate entry identity to each space. The left side of the plan is where the addition is. As I mentioned, we're really trying to promote firefighter health and wellness and diversity within the building. So we're doing a full gut of the interior space and providing additional spaces for decontamination in that new addition. So those would be for turnout gear, a workroom, EMS storage, trash and recycling, as well as a larger and expanded exercise room. Again, promoting the health and safety of the firefighters. Next slide goes to the second floor.
Hey, Ryan, time flies when you're having fun, and believe it or not, your 3 minutes have long since elapsed.
Sure.
We saw this in August. It's pretty fresh in my mind, maybe with others. Is there anything you'd like to just highlight on what you've changed since August?
There's been real minimal changes since August. We looked at exploring some of the different materials on the addition and the brick color and such. And so we went back and forth internally as a team, looking at darker brick colors and the composition of those materials. We have kind of an orange brick that's complementing the existing building, as well as a new metal panel providing kind of that new identity along Badger Road. And again, the overhead doors, that's really all kind of remained the same. We're really trying to promote transparency in and out of the building. And so really letting the fire department feel much more accessible to the public there along Badger Road.
Thank you. Beautiful. Let's see, are there any other, I think everybody else was available to answer questions. Let's see here. Right, Amy.
That's
Kevin.
correct. They were all
Yep.
registered to answer questions.
Yep. Okay. I think looking at the staff report, the one finding I believe, Kevin, we need to make is the appropriate use of metal panel in presenting an exemplary design in this instance. Is that right for this district?
That's correct. That was the one extra finding that I would recommend the commission makes.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I think they've cleaned it up, tightened the design up, it looking better. But we do have to make the finding that it's an appropriate use of materials. Lois.
I do feel it's appropriate, and it looks like a higher quality material as well. So unless anyone else has any comments, I will make a motion for final approval.
Okay, second by Craig. Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no, I'm sorry, you have something you'd like to add, Jessica?
Yeah, I was reading the notes, comments from last time, and it's about signage, and we're not talking about signage here, but that big number 6, that super graphic, is the shield logo of the fire department also going to be on the signage? Just curious.
We currently have the badge located adjacent to the fire department entry. So that would be on the parking lot side. The badge itself would not be something that's visible from the public street side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, seeing no additional hands raised, then by unanimous consent, you have final approval. Thank you very much. That takes us then to our unfinished business in the agenda. And we're going to see a couple of projects over in what's the, now I draw a blank, but it's Grandview Commons. There we go. We saw these maybe a couple of months ago. I think we have Bradley Servant making a presentation for both of them.
Yes, I'm here. And I also have Hayden Frank representing the ownership group to answer questions should they arise.
You misspelled proposed.
I did. I missed the L.
I have to come back next month. Sorry.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, so the project sitting in front of you, we brought to you 2 months, I think, or a month and a half ago, as informational. We've tweaked it since then. And we're here for initial/final approval if possible, but hopefully getting initial approval. So the proposed project is 2 projects combined, items 7 and 8. If we can kind of just talk to them at the same time, that would be great. The larger project, which is located on the corner of North Star and Gemini to the south, and then bordered on Haley Way to the north. The property is connected from Haley Way to Gemini with a private access easement, shared driveway. And then they're connected with another access easement that runs east-west and wraps back towards Gemini Drive. As mentioned a month ago, it's a 99-unit apartment building for age restriction, 55 and older. And then the building to the south is a proposed 12-unit condominium development. Next slide, please. These are the elevations that were submitted. I do have to apologize that these are out of date. I did send some elevations late this afternoon. Unfortunately, I can see that they did not make it in or into it. So if we can just move on to the next slide, we can show the elevations of the, did I lose you guys? My screen went blank. Hello? Ah, there
Sorry,
we go. Thank you.
I'm toggling back and forth. I did receive images very recently.
Yeah, it was very late. As I was going through my presentation, I realized they were the wrong ones.
So just for the commission, these are the images that were just recently sent over that were just referenced.
Yep. So those are proposed elevations for the larger apartment complex. Materials are a combination of siding and stone. We've eliminated all reference to any brick material that we had previously submitted. Elevation wise, simplifying the building and addressing each corner, similar in material and nature, providing siding at each corner of the building. So each corner of the building is represented the same. We can go on to the next slide.
I'm trying to advance them, but that's the only drawing that I have.
You can go back to the other presentation then. That should be in there. Yep, thank you.
And just from a secretary standpoint, just a clarification.
Yes.
Is this otherwise, I guess the changes, because it's relatively late to kind of introduce new changes. The commission had seen the packet that was initially submitted. So
Sure.
if you could just speak to the extent of that.
Yeah. So the changes made to the packet that was submitted. So here are the elevations for the 12-unit apartment condo project. We have kind of taken what was on the front of the building, the stone material, introduced it onto the back to try to apply some coherency to that. Introduced some of the aluminum siding to separate the units from each other, and then introduce some landscaping in a planter box to provide some screening for the patio covers or the patios that are over the top of the garages. You move on to the next slide. Material palette, again, simplified, eliminating the brick, using a natural stone, a wood grain longboard wood siding, and then a engineered wood siding, both vertical and horizontal patterns. You can go to the next slide. Renderings of the apartment building, and we tried to provide renderings of the entire development complex. So this is a rendering looking at the entrance from the north, Haley Way, street entrance into the garage, where we've identified the corner of the building with the horizontal siding, and then kind of bookend each end or the ends of the building with the vertical or the horizontal wood board siding, and then introduce the stone and the horizontal and vertical lap siding in the middle. Next slide. Image of the parking lot, same entrance, if you will, just so we can see the elongated perspective of the building. To the far right-hand side, you can see the introduction of the townhomes, or I should say not the townhomes, the condos. You can go to the next slide. This is an image looking at, from Gemini, looking at the condos, where we are providing the stone, still this vertical application of the stone, which I believe anchors the roof structure and that vertical 3-story structure to the ground. And it also provides some definition to the entrance to the unit as well. Next slide, if you would. This is a image looking from North Star, intersection of North Star and Gemini at the entrance to the apartment building. Again, providing the wood horizontal siding at each end of the building, and then treating the corner with that horizontal siding and wrapping the balcony around that corner. You'll go to the next. Actually, you can see, you go back one slide to the left-hand side of the screen. You can see the townhomes or the condo buildings down the hill side, if you will. The next slide, if you would. Yeah. This is looking at the north side of the building from Gemini. To the right-hand side is the tree cluster that's currently existing, and the open green space for the community to take advantage of. Again, treating the corner with the horizontal siding and wrapping the balconies on the corner. Next slide. This is an image of the condos, more of a straight-on perspective, identifying that vertical element, tying it to the ground, creating a base, and then identifying the entrances to each one of the units. Go to the next slide. That may be the last one. I think that is
the last one. Yep, that's the last one I have.
Yep. So that wraps up the presentation. We'll field questions.
Thank you.
And I apologize for the elevations being submitted late. As I was going through my presentation, it caught my eye that they were the wrong ones.
So it looks like we sort of took 7 and 8 together because they're related and they're neighbors and it's the same applicant. We're still going to have to address them separately when it comes time to vote. I do have a question for you, Kevin. Is this late information not part of the official record then?
Well, it's a part of it will be, it's not in Legistar. So I guess I just asked for a clarification if this is consistent, which was in the packet, and the presentation file that came in earlier was wrong. So I guess I just asked the applicant to kind of clarify what's in the new materials and if it's different from what was in the original packet that the UDC received last week.
You still there? He's muted.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still here. It is different in that the materials are the same. This is the composition of the materials are just slightly different.
Okay. And is that's not what's in our presentation file then? Only what we just saw was on Kevin's screen, but not sent to us earlier?
Are you asking?
Correct.
Kevin?
Those materials were sent to me about a half hour ago. So that was.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll start with Lois and then Jessica.
Thank you. Can we put the image of the corner of Gemini back on the screen? Is it possible? So my question is the material that has the wood look, and okay, thank you. Because I'm looking at the other one, it's a little different. So at the corners of the cement board, and I am assuming that wood look one is also some kind of cement board or something. How are the corners as they come around? How are they treated? Are you trying to miter them, or is there some way to finish that cleanly?
That corner will be treated with a trim board color to match the siding.
Okay, and then the building kind of looks like it's just sliced off, and I'm sure there's some kind of drip or something over the, where the roof comes in, or soffit or whatever is up there. And you have a lot of different materials kind of going around, and I'm assuming there's something, and it might be quite small, but as you go around, I think it needs to be chosen carefully so it looks okay on all of those different materials and blends in.
Yeah, there will be a cap applied to the parapet wall that is very difficult to see in these types of perspective and renderings, but the material color will blend in with the materials chosen. So that the gray siding will have a gray trim or a gray cap, parapet cap, pre-finished aluminum cap type, and the aluminum brown will be a brown cap as well.
Okay, so you're going to be changing that as it goes around?
Yeah, so it matches the siding color that it's going to be capping to, yes.
Okay. It's going to be a little tricky. So, yeah, the devil's in the details for that kind of thing. So that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, then followed by Craig.
Okay, I had about 4 questions. So could we go to slide 10? And thank you for the revisions. I think this got more sophisticated and more unified, and I think it answers the tone of what is across the street and in the surrounding area well. So that's great to see. On slide 10, I have a question about that half stone, half I don't know what vertical element between 2 units. It's the only piece like that.
Yeah, so that piece is actually a firewall that separates the building into 2 smaller structures to limit the requirement for sprinklering. So we've tried to treat it with and limit the amount of stone we're putting on it just for cost related reasons. So that's, I guess, is what it is. And we tried to blend that in with what we did to the back of the building. We actually separated each one of the garages with the same type of wall, and then introduced a screen between the individual garage patios, if you will, which mimic what's going on to the front here as far as this firewall goes.
I would maybe debate with you that it's not a strength on that elevation. The way that it's detailed halfway up with stone and then turns into, is that siding?
It is siding, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think this side elevation is really strong, and that one element isn't quite fitting. Not that I know what the answer is, but I would suggest review on that. Could we go look at slide number 5? I'm sorry, I have a different slide, number 5. Can we go the other side, number 5? The one with the garage door in it, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm coming up.
Oh. It would have to be that first one you were on, Kevin. That one has a garage door on it. Yeah.
Yep. So the windows above the garage, and then to the side of the garage, and then around the corner. So on this end, just on that unit over the garage, you have square windows and tall, narrow ones.
Yep.
The tops of them don't align with each other, and they don't align with the windows on the rest of the building. And I wondered if you could explain that.
They should have aligned. It must have been just somebody must have when they were working on the rendering, massaged or accidentally tweaked them and didn't realize it. But the top of the windows are all at 7 feet above finished floor, match top of doors.
Whew. Good answer. You pass. I wanted to point out that the east elevation on our packet was shown as a repetition of the south elevation. So I don't know if that has to go down in record at all, but our packet doesn't show a correct
Yeah.
west elevation.
And those were the corrected, you're talking about the apartment building?
Yeah, that we don't even have anything in our packet on the west elevation.
Yes, this is the one, this is the incorrect elevation, which I submitted to Kevin very late, and I apologize for that.
Okay, I just wanted to let the rest of the committee know that if in case that's a point of record we need to know about. Okay, sorry, I'm getting there. Where you have stone come up to above the third floor, it looks like, and then it goes to paneling. Does that stone have a thickness, or does it look like a paper veneer? I can't quite tell.
Actually, I think the renderings show it better. It is a full depth stone veneer. So it does have thickness, and it will have a stone sill cap on it. So there is some dimension to it. Typically projects out from the siding approximately 6-7 inches or so.
Okay, thanks. And then my last question is, this is senior housing listed on our agenda, and I wondered, what about this is senior design?
It is age restricted 55 and older.
Okay.
So when you say senior, it's just age restricted 55 and older.
Okay, was there, not that you have to, I'm just curious if that affected how you designed this at all?
Some of the interior spaces, community spaces for social gathering, it affects that more and more. And then providing some outdoor space for each one of the residents is key. But also providing, especially the courtyard patio area for community activities and outdoor activity space.
Okay, thank you. Nice, it looks good. Thank you for that.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Craig.
So Brad, I guess one thing just to talk through, and I agree with the other comments, I think this come a long way. I was just looking through the meeting minutes before the comments of what's been picked up from the previous informational. And I understand deadlines are always fun, but I think the big question is what you submitted to Kevin late is not what we reviewed, and we're kind of putting in front of us for approval. So is there anything on those updated renderings that you want to point out as being different? Because what we're approving is essentially the packet that was submitted. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the renderings. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. The renderings that are included in your packet represent the materials that were included on the elevations that were submitted to Kevin late. So the material makeup and the material composition of the renderings is 100% accurate and representative of what you see on these elevations. So you can see on this elevation, we eliminated the brick. There was a cream color brick that was in the original submittal packet that is no longer part of the development. That was what we had originally, and it's completely eliminated. And then as far as the treatment of the materials, as discussed previously, we've treated each corner of the building identical using the gray horizontal siding and the wraparound balconies at each corner, which was a comment that I thought was brought up last time, was to try to anchor each corner of the building to bring some coherency to it. So we've done that as well. And from the previous elevations, we've addressed, I think, the parapet height. There was some concern about the height and the materials above the window. I think there was some concern that it was a different material and it just felt like it was too bulky. So we've blended that material and took the materials to the top of the parapet, except for where we have obviously the stone. And we actually expanded that stone up to the bottom of the window frame, if you will.
So all those things you mentioned are changes from our packet, just to clarify?
Yes, they are. And they're represented in the elevations, I should say, the renderings of your packet correctly.
as the elevations were just the incorrect sheet.
Okay, so our renderings in the packet are correct. The
Yes.
elevations, the actual architectural elevations are not accurate. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much. That really helps. And you're updating the actual elevation.
Two-dimensional elevation sheets, correct.
Thank you. That was my only comments. Otherwise, I think the design looks very well. I like it.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Cliff. I just, actually, it's maybe a question to our landscape architects. There are both the east, north, and west elevations, all because of the slope of this site, have rather significant long extensions of solid wall at the ground floor. You can kind of see it in the view that we have here, but this is one of the short sides of the building, and some of the long ones even have more exposed. Yeah. Yeah, so like here, and I'm just wondering whether I realize that's the parking garage, and but the landscaping doesn't seem. I'm wondering if there shouldn't be more height to some of the landscaping to break up some of the exposure of that wall, since it's kind of a blank wall facing your pedestrian walkways. Whether there should be more variation in height and scale of the plantings. That was it's really kind of a landscape question.
Christian, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I was going to question that unless I'm mistaken, as I went through the Legistar pages and the presentation, I did see a landscape design for the townhouses, the condominiums, but I did not see a landscape plan for the apartment building included in there. If anybody else could weigh in on that, it's possible I somehow missed it, but I was scratching my head as to why that wasn't in there if this was being considered for initial final.
I don't see one, but I'm suffering from some regenerating image issues here.
It should be page 4 of the packet that was submitted for the apartment building.
Are you able to locate that, Kevin?
Yes, it's just taking a second. I'm pulling that up here. So
okay,
bear with me 1 second. It'll just take a moment.
While we wait, as long as I'm unmuted, I would just like to say that both the apartment building and the condominiums, I find this a huge improvement, visually from the previous ones, and they really seem to connect to each other in materials now in a much better way, and I think it's a nice improvement. I particularly like the front doors going up the hill on the condominiums, that 5-window treatment. I think actually it makes a nice, it just looks nice with the ascending elevation along there, and the colors choices I think are really nice on both buildings. And I know this commission has sort of frowned in the past sometimes on the faux wood materials, but on these buildings, I kind of like them, and I think it's a nice look.
Okay. Was that a was that a landscape plan there? I saw it briefly.
Like I say, the only one that I saw was one for the condominiums, which given the footprint that it's on, there was very little space. I thought they did a pretty nice job of plant selection of, stuff packed into, almost no place to plant stuff. But I never did see one for the larger property across the way.
It's taking a while to load here. It's a large file, so I apologize for the delay. I think when Brad mentioned sheet 4, that was the utility plan. Brad, did you have a sheet number? This is the packet that you had submitted, so I want to make sure I'm pulling up the right sheet.
It's L100, and in the PDF that we submitted or sent into you, it should be page 4. Sorry.
Here's
that's what it's showing up to me.
It's not, well, on the full submittal on mine, it's number 9, it's sheet 9.
Yeah, and it's under plans, not presentation. You might be Christian, and it's only for the senior housing agenda item, the plan packet, not the presentation packet.
All right, I thought I had looked in both places, but I noticed on this particular agenda that there was really substantial differences between the stuff that was included in the original Legistar pages and the presentation links.
I tried to keep the presentation legs a little short just because of the 3-minute time frame. Sorry, there's 20 pages in the actual submittal.
Well, I've made my comments, but it looks like Shane is waving and maybe has something.
Yeah, maybe you've located it, Shane.
Well, yeah, I was just.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Shane, I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen. I'm looking at it right here. That's bad technique here. Let me put that back on my screen. I'm the only one looking at it. Oh, well, you go, Shane. I'll put the landscape plan on the screen.
No problem. I did see it on page 9, like Cliff said, and everything looked fine to me. I think the angle that we had the rendering on screen of seemed a little deceiving to me. So Tom, kind of coming back to your point, it did feel like in the rendering, like a tree would help anchor that corner of the building where it was otherwise just kind of low foundation planting. To me, in the plan view, it doesn't look like there's actually as much space as what it appeared to have in the rendering. But either way, I think if for the applicant, if that was the case to add a tree, I think we were looking at, what is that street? So on the east.
It's North Star. Yep.
North Star is on the right side of this plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be kind of the upper right corner of the building.
I think we have some space to add some smaller ornamental type trees there.
And honestly, I think it could just be like one tree, just to Tom's point, to really like have something that punctuates the building massing just to anchor that corner. I don't think you need to, I'm assuming there's other like street trees and stuff too that might kind of influence our aesthetic and our perspective of that corner.
Yeah, but not a calorie pair.
But not a calorie pair.
Understood.
I'm learning things. Okay. Any other questions or comments? What we really need to do is we need to go to item 7, which is the Gemini Drive, which is the townhouses. And we will have to make a motion and discuss that motion, and then move on to the apartment building. And then with the apartment building, the motion will need to include some reference to the late elevations, and that what we're really approving, or what we're actually making a motion on, is the renderings. Craig.
Drive, I would make a motion for approval. The only comment I recall, Jessica had a comment of just revisiting that firewall But I won't put that as an official comment or requirement, just that it might require revisiting, and that could be staff level approval if that element is modified.
All right. Second on that. Jessica seconded the motion for approval with review of the firewall masonry element. Okay. Don't see any other hands raised. So item number 7 is approved, and that brings us then to number 8, which is the larger apartment building. Kevin?
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough on my raise hand. I just wanted a clarification on the motion and that condition. Since this is advisory to the Plan Commission, I guess I want to understand, is there something that we as staff, do we need to approve a change, or is it a condition that staff needs to see something different, or is it okay if it comes back in this form? I guess I just like a little bit more specificity about how to interpret that.
It sounded like you were not making it a condition of approval.
Correct. Yes. Thanks, Kevin. I was saying it's approved as is. If they want to look at that firewall based on Jessica's recommendation, that could be a modification that staff takes a look at in the future, because it was more of a minor detail.
Okay. Thanks. If that's the understanding, we'll go with that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And then 5817 Halley Way, the apartment building. Craig?
So I would make a recommendation for approval with no other comments that I had scratched down here. So it's just recommended for approval.
Just with the reference to the renderings superseding the elevations that were submitted.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Cliff.
Second on that motion, Lois. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Kevin?
Just a clarification, there were 2 comments that I have jotted down here that came up in the discussion, and just wanted to see if the body wanted to include that in any way in their recommendation. One had to do with the landscaping comment and the inclusion of an ornamental tree. And the other one was the clarification on the window sizes on the garage elevation. I don't know if those were others, but though I had those as notes, so I don't know if that was somehow intended to be worked into a motion or not. It's up to the commission. Just want to check.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion with regard to those items? Let's see, Jessica.
I guess just to clarify on that, Craig, would you mind if we amended that to include just one tree, and that the heights of the windows align on the west facade? I mean, the window height.
Friendly amendments? Yep, I would consider that a friendly amendment.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With those 2 items, amending the motion, agenda item number 8 has final approval with the conditions mentioned with regard to the late submittal of the elevations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next one is on the corner near the corner, I should say, of Gorham and State Street, 222 West Gorham. Kevin, if you would just give us a brief introduction on why we're seeing this one.
Sure. I'll just do a very quick overview. This is an item that was originally submitted for administrative staff review. And as the acting secretary of the commission, I advise that the applicant actually makes an application to this body to deliberate. And the factors are outlined in the staff report, and I can briefly summarize that here. There's a design guideline that's in the downtown guideline, the downtown design guidelines. That's one of the standards that's referenced for this type of signage approval. And it talks about signage and keeping messages simple and so forth. This element does include a marquee element. And as outlined in the staff report, there is live entertainment. There was an improvement for live entertainment that did occur actually after the original submittal. And the applicant has indicated that the marquee is necessary to promote the live music, and they cite other examples, including the Orpheum and the Majestic Theater, I believe, are the two examples in the packet. Staff just wanted to note that from a use standpoint, those uses are different. This is considered a restaurant nightclub, which is essentially a restaurant that can have live entertainment, and it's not a theater use. And so just wanted to note that there's a difference there, and just wanted, because of that design guideline, I wanted the body to weigh in on this. And so there's further information in the staff report, and I'm available to answer questions after we hear from the development team.
Okay, thanks.
Registered to speak for this are Josh Crow and Dan Yoder.
Looks like Josh is not with us, but Dan is here.
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Here again this evening. And yeah, so what we've got proposed here is obviously, I think you guys can tell from what you're looking at, a very high end, we went very traditional on this, open face channel letters with exposed neon. And we have this, yes, a canopy marquee style. But as you can see, it's very shallow to meet the ordinance in terms of what would be required as a wall sign. We do also have some accent lighting underneath that you'll notice. And then also we do have the changeable copy on that track as shown under the main lettering. And those letters, just so everybody's clear, they are opaque background. So just the letters themselves would illuminate. And as Kevin has stated, us and the client have expressed a need to, or a desire to state, the live events that they are going to be promoting. And we thought this was a small, tasteful way to do that. And that is all I have, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, I see your hand is raised. Is that a new development?
No new development.
Okay.
Advising the commission, there was technical difficulties, and I had way too many large files opened on my screen, and I was not able to display anything in a timely manner. So I will put the images up that were being described a moment ago, and I apologize for the delay. I was trying to buy a second here so I could get the images to go along with the presentation. Though,
yeah, no, that's fine. If you can have the images up, I see Tom and Christian have their hands raised, so it would be helpful to have those on the screen. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Cliff. A question to Dan. Is the changeable text, is that electronic, or are those physical? Is it like a theater marquee where you put up the letters and then they're somehow halo lit?
Those are manual, the old school. So yeah, that's
old
the
school.
Individual placard. Yep. We wanted this to be a very traditional sign in every sense. So we didn't feel that a digital display would exude the look and feel we were after.
Okay, so it really is sort of like an old-fashioned movie marquee in that regard. And
absolutely,
yeah. Yep. And considering where this is, I actually I kind of like it because one, I like the fact that building's being reused, but also it's at a very busy intersection where it'll have high visibility. So I think that I'm glad that it's the old school letters. Thanks.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Great. Christian and then Jessica.
Okay, the screen is frozen up again here. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just, my question was pretty much answered there. I was concerned that the upcoming events portion of this was going to be a digital, or even worse, a rolling screen where the upcoming performers kind of rolled by, and that was going to be a hard no from me. for that, which I just find those signs ugly outside of Las Vegas and really inappropriate at a busy intersection. But it looks like that's a moot point. So I'm happy to see this is old style.
Thank you, and I feel the same. I feel the same way, sir. Thank you.
I think Ladies Night is kind of old style too. Jessica?
Yeah, I had two questions. One, please tell me that you're really going to have a mechanical ball.
I would love to be able to answer that accurately, though. I believe so. I believe that's something that they have at Red Rock, but I cannot definitively answer that, as I'm not the owner of the property itself or the venue.
Okay, well, I hope it comes true. My dream comes true, and that we should have our UDC meetings there. The other thing is that I'm not quite sure I understand the blade sign.
The blade sign, is that the one shown there?
Right.
That one, and maybe Kevin, I don't know if you can. I don't know if is that one submitted in our proposal. That one is a reuse of their existing sign from their previous location, and it will be installed on a code compliant. And I believe we already have a permit for that, ready to go, and that would be installed where the previous blade sign was for Alley Cat.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called, Alley Cat. Yeah.
A Hopcat, I believe, but the
Hopcat.
But yes, that one was previously approved, and that was when I reviewed that administratively. That didn't have the same issue with the design guideline issue that I wanted to bring before the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Christian, then Craig.
No, not me. I'm done.
All right, can I go?
Yep.
I just a couple of things. I also wanted to ask about the old school the letters at the bottom. Are they illuminated in any way? I mean, is there some kind of a backlighting that illuminates the manually installed lettering?
Yes, sir. Yep. There is a backlighting behind it. But two things that are going on there. One, there is we wanted to be accommodating of the no illuminated light color backgrounds. So those are, again, the individual placards themselves have a black opaque vinyl, and so the letters are reverse cut out of that. So just the letters themselves will light up at night, and that night rendering that you're seeing there on the top right corner there, that is going to be pretty indicative of what that will look like when it is illuminated. The letters may be a little bit brighter than what we're showing there, but that's going to be pretty accurate.
Thank you, Dan. One other comment from me. I'm aware of the business and certainly the branding, the font of the signage, kind of all aligns with that business. Unfortunately, I can't help but notice a lack of harmony between the building architecture in this case and the signage, the style of the signage. It may not be something that could be remedied. I wonder if there are opportunities to try to explore maybe a more modern font, perhaps, to go with this more modern looking, metal building. Those are my comments. I think that might be a hard one, given that perhaps that sign is aligning with the core kind of branding of the business. But I do think it's an opportunity that might be worth exploring.
Sure, and I could speak on that quick. We went through several renditions. Their actual logo includes kind of like a tribal bullhead that is above the main Red Rock text. We knew right away it wouldn't fit the layout of the signable area very well. So we did, the client has come, I think, further than what they were originally willing to do, based on what we felt worked out best in terms of layout of the building, or of the wall area. And I hear what you're saying, but yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Just based on that is their branding. Outside of that, though, I think in terms of the layout of the sign and how it fits on the building, where we ended up here, worked out really well in terms of where we started. I'll say that. It's a nice horizontal fit. It fits pretty good inside that sign band.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Craig?
Given the comments, I would like to make a motion for approval, and specifically, Kevin, because I appreciate you bringing it in front of us, because this is a kind of a tricky thing. I think specifically because of how they did the backlighting, where it's discreetly lit, and it's not overly obtrusive or like glowing, or digital and some of those other things. I think this is an appropriate use for this type of sign. So I would again make a motion for approval.
Thank you. Is that a second, Lois and Tom? Okay. Thank you. All right. Seeing no additional hands raised, that means you have final approval. Thank you very much. Item number 10, Kevin's got some introduction on that as well. This has to do with a review board in the city of Madison that requires Urban Design Commission participation.
Thank you, Chair. And luckily, I won't botch the technology for this one because I don't have slides, just a couple of sentences that I can present the old-fashioned way in Zoom. So as far as this one, this is the High Crossing Design Review Board. And there's a variety of design review boards, and there's a handful that the city is a participant on, or some element of the city, and this is one. And so the covenants that were created required that the city's Urban Design Commission appoint a representative to this board. It's a 3-member board, and historically, this position has always been filled by the UDC secretary over the years. I'm not aware of previously how this body has appointed it. Some of these are appointed by the planning division director, but this is one the covenants specify that the UDC makes the appointment. And as I understand it right now, it is a 2-year term. So if the commission wanted to keep with past practices, they could recommend, and you could, me, and I've been speaking with representatives from the design review board. You could also nominate the Urban Design Commission secretary as a position. And that way, when there's a new full-time secretary, we wouldn't have to go in and nominate another person, and it would automatically transition to them. So that would be my recommendation. It's a formality, but it's up to the Urban Design Commission to appoint a member to this board. And so with that background, I will just turn it over to you. And if you have questions or anything else, I'll do my best to answer them.
Any questions before we make a nomination? Craig?
Evan, would it also, as we threw a nomination, would it help to say secretary or acting secretary if there is an area where there is a temporary filling? And I don't know if that's a legitimate say. We used to always say acting when we were at the state, but I don't know if that's a correct term.
I don't know. The Secretary of the Urban Design Commission is a position that's defined in city ordinance. An acting one, I think, is, not as defined. I think it's, understood that it's somebody until the position is permanently filled. So I guess my sense would be it's implied. And I also, think that position will be filled relatively soon. So I don't know if we need to be that nuanced with it. But I suppose you could if that was provided comfort, but I don't necessarily think that that's necessary.
You do such a great job, Kevin. It's hardly noticeable that you're acting.
I took acting lessons for years. It was all the high school plays I was in.
Okay. So any nominations then? The suspense is killing me. Tom?
I would move that Urban Design Commission appoint the secretary of the Urban Design Commission, acting or otherwise, to that design review committee.
Okay.
High crossing.
And that's a second by Craig and Lois. Okay.
I don't know. I think Rafik really wants to do it.
Rafik.
I'll bet.
We'll just say that there was a discussion on the motion, but the motion's not changed. And then I don't know what Rafik did to you for you to be so mean like that, but we'll make sure he finds out. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Kevin. Then this is going to be number 11, which will be our final presentation for the evening. It's an informational presentation, big project on 322 East Washington. If we could have a 3-minute limitation be respected, we would all very much appreciate that at almost 7 o'clock at night.
We have a number of people registered wishing to speak, including Mark Binkowski, Peter Beeson, Brian Reed, Andy Laufenberg, and Bob Pleba is registered wishing to speak, neither in support nor opposition.
Great, thank you.
Brian and, excuse me, Peter and Andy are both unmuted. Brian, you should have a prompt to unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, thanks.
Well, I'll go ahead and kick this off. My name is Peter Beeson. First, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Peter Beeson. I'm the lead pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church at 322 East Washington Avenue. St. John's has been in the heart of downtown Madison for 165 years, the vast majority of it at this same corner. And we have a long-standing history of serving the community and those in need. And that's had multiple different ways that's been expressed over the years, from our emergency fund, where we give away $40,000 a year in low-cost, or small denomination amounts for rental assistance, transportation, etc., to providing free space for the Porchlight Overnight's Men's Shelter until the pandemic relocated it, to providing very discounted space for Off the Square Club, a ministry for people with diagnosed mental illness, many of whom are homeless or housing insecure. And that desire to care for the poor and people in need has expressed itself, like I said, in a variety of ways over our history. And we've been very focused on changing our building to adapt to the needs of ministry in the neighborhood. Next slide. So this just gives you that location again. Next slide. So this is some of the history of the building. You can see a photo from around 1856 of the original small clapboard building. Then in the early 1900s, the congregation built a much larger, grander, sort of neo-Gothic building. Next slide. In the 1950s, we did a substantial add-on to support space for a basketball court and other neighborhood programming. And then our current facility, as you see, in the 1960s was remodeled to have a 1960s iconic arch or triangle on the front. And then about 12 years ago, we added a couple windows to that opening to allow the full basement level to be used by some of our ministry partners. And we are currently working on this project to do one of the most substantial redevelopments of our site with Mark and Brad Binkowski. And the goal is to provide substantial affordable housing to our neighborhood, particularly targeting people who work in restaurants, retail, service sector jobs that are so important to the thriving of downtown Madison. All right, Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Pastor Peter. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So before I talk about this, I just quick detour to respond to Jessica's previous question about the mechanical bull in Red Rocks. I'm a shareholder in Urban Land Interest, which is the company that owns that building at 222 West Gorham, and they do in fact have a mechanical bull in there. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. But regarding the St. John's project, very excited to be working with St. John's on this exciting redevelopment. If you want to flip to the next slide, looking at the site plan here, the site is about 21,000 square feet. It's not a big site, but it's highly visible at the corner of East Washington and North Hancock. And so as you come up the hill approaching the Capitol Square, the site really has a lot of visibility and deserves extra attention. And one of the unique things about this site is that there's nearly 13 feet of grade between what's shown on the left-hand side here, called the west end, and the east side where North Hancock Street is. So it allows us to activate a couple of different street frontages to accommodate the different uses. So St. John's and their worship ministry space and their partner organizations will have their entrance kind of up that grand stair in the middle of the block on East Washington. And then the residential lobby has its entrance on North Hancock Street, adjacent to the parking entrance exit. So in total, we're proposing a 10-story building with 125 plus or minus residential units. That'll be supported by 2 to 2.5 levels of underground parking. So the parking will be completely hidden underneath the building. And of those apartments, 85% will be set aside for those earning below 60% of the county median income. So I think it's important to highlight that this is not just a multifamily project with some low income units, but really the goal for this development is to maximize the amount and availability of affordable housing. And so with that, we need to maximize the density, which is why we're asking for the 2 additional bonus stories. And from there, I'll turn it over to Brian and Andy to go through the floor plans quickly and look at the exterior design.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Next slide. So this is a plan of the lower level. Like Mark said, the lower level is down at the level of North Hancock Street. We felt that this was the most appropriate streets for character as it fronts and transitions into the neighborhood to locate the residential lobby entry off of, as well as the parking entry. As you can see there, it's a little bit further north on the site. As Mark alluded to, as the grade changes along west or East Washington, the building slowly is more exposed, I guess, on the eastern side. So the intent is that all of the eastern exposed portion along North Hancock Street would be occupied by residential amenities or other residential related functions. And then as it moves up the street to the primary level, the next slide, please. Then at the first floor level, then is, like Mark alluded to, again, the primary function for housing St. John's space and their partnering spaces as well. So on this level, again, the goal is to keep it similar in organization in some ways to what they have existing on the site, to keep the prominence that they want to preserve, to keep their identity on East Washington and on that corner, so that you can see, you know, their facility up and down the avenue, as well as providing some higher visibility than to some of the organizations that they partner with as well.
And just to jump in there, Brian, this is Peter. Sure. This one of our goals is also to provide really vibrant community space. We currently host a number of, or pre-COVID, 12-step groups, community groups, etc. And the goal would be to continue doing that and increase that with this new facility.
Yes, like Pastor Peter mentioned, I mean, right now, the primary sort of focus areas are occurring at the corner, the fellowship and gathering space where they host a number of events, as well as we are looking at creating a small courtyard space then for more sort of intimate gatherings and quieter gatherings to keep it somewhat away from the noise and the hustle and bustle that occurs on East Washington further back on the site. And then that's related to some of the community space and the arts and crafts room as well. If you'd like to go to the next slide. This is just a typical layout of what would be the upper floors, typically like floors 3 through 9. There is a green roof up on the second floor that will be occupiable as an amenity space for the residential tenants. But a lot of the amenity spaces, again, will occur down on the lower level as well. But this is just sort of an indicative floor of those spaces, showing roughly a mixture, roughly 14 units and a mixture of studios, 1s, 2s, and we will also have some 3-bedroom units as well. And as you can see from the plan, roughly like 30 to 40% of the units will only have balconies. The rest of the units will not, to try to decrease sort of the busyness and increase the sort of composition on the exterior of the building. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andy to go through that.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we are standing on East Washington looking down Hancock here. And one of the biggest challenges we had with this project was how do we balance the language of all the user groups, but still pay homage to the historic church that's existing on the site. And we started to pay homage to that historic church in a couple of different ways, one through form and the other through material. The first step was paying homage through form by establishing this corner element that is very tall and very vertical, something that draws your eye up. And that was a modern interpretation of that corner spire that used to be existing on that element. And then the language for this taller vertical element at the corner came from the armature of a stained glass window. The stained glass window itself has these smaller stone elements that kind of come to the point and they cradle those stained glass images, and they're very long and very linear. So we reinterpreted that as this apartment cladding that creates these very tall, long, linear expressions that draws your eye up. And like those elements being stone, we are looking to have this corner element also be cladded in stone. Below that, as previous people have alluded, is the sanctuary and the gathering space. So to celebrate that, we're cladding that space with a randomly spaced curtain wall pattern with a series of colored vinyl interlays in between there. And that's kind of a modern interpretation of that stained glass window. Maybe with any luck, or hopefully with some luck, we can reuse those stained glass windows in this application. But it's something that really allows these community spaces to shine and gather. And at night, this would be an absolutely stunning beacon that kind of pours out colored light onto the sidewalk. And then from a material standpoint, I mentioned we're looking at using stone. We're kind of elevating this church up on a plinth due to the grade change. And that stone wraps from around the base, and to the left, it starts to form a stone colonnade, which is then directly tied to the church. Above that is, you see this brick facade, and that becomes the language for the majority of the apartment complex. And it wanted to be something a little bit more calmer in nature compared to this corner element, allowing that corner element to really be uplifting and soaring. But even though it's simple in nature of its materials, we still are looking at playing with the coursing of the bricks and their bond patterns. So the vertical pier elements would be a standard running bond pattern, but the horizontal elements would be a stacked soldier course, and then above the windows themselves would be an expressive steel lintel. The penthouse then itself wraps across and then back down on both sides of this spire-like element. And on this side, you're seeing it define the church entry with a stone canopy that extends out to the street and a monumental stairs that extends down to the street as well. I know that's the end of my 3 minutes, and there's a lot more pictures, so we could just kind of go quickly through the other ones here. This is again a corner from East Washington and looking down Hancock. The apartment entry kind of starts right where your mouse is. That's where the garage entry is, and just to the left is the apartment entry with their amenity spaces. You can keep going. A view from Hancock looking back towards East Washington. This is the residential side with that stone apartment language. We can keep going. And at the back is that partnering space that extends out with the green roof up above and a courtyard for that partnering space in the church. And I think the last slide, next one, something that we want to touch base on is the planting beds in front of this church. The church has a lot of programs, and they currently do. The space in front of their building now, they use that area for gardens, like vegetable gardens, and it's programs that they run internally. And we intend on doing that in these planting beds as well. So even though you might see little flowers here kind of populate it, it's probably going to be like corn stalks and beans and tomatoes and other fun vegetables like that. Something to really activate, not only visually, but physically in the street. That might be it.
Okay, thank you very much. Very nice presentation. This is informational, so I hope the commissioners have some comments. Go ahead, Kevin.
Let's check with Julie. I believe we have one other speaker not from the development team.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Bob Kleba wishes to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob Kleba. If you're unmuted, anytime you're ready.
I think I'm unmuted.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Bob Kleba, and I'm co-chair with Mariah Renz for the Neighborhood Steering Committee. I can try to answer any questions the commission may have about the neighborhood's impressions about this project. However, I will say that we've had a hard time getting feedback from neighbors. I will qualify that by saying that this proposal addresses many of the concerns that James Madison Park residents have about their neighborhood, namely maintaining affordable housing and addressing social justice concerns. Also, because the proposed development is sited on existing St. John's property, it doesn't displace any existing residents who are often outspoken in these situations. Nevertheless, committee members are grateful that the developer engaged the neighborhood very early in their process and have communicated clearly their purpose and goals. Members are pleased that the proposed development will provide a significant number of affordable units and that the congregation are committed to remaining on site and continuing their mission. Affordable housing at this location will help to house people who work downtown and will help maintain the vibrancy and livability of the James Madison Park neighborhood. However, neighbors are concerned about the prospective deep shading of adjacent and nearby properties, similar to concerns this commission heard about the 11-story development at 414 East Washington. ULI and St. John's are proposing an 11-story building, albeit not as wide. This parcel has an A+2 zoning restriction, but because of the grade of the address of the entrance of the proposed development, an unwelcome 11th story pops up on the Hancock Street side. Another concern is the motorized vehicle access from North Hancock. Currently, this requires that all residents, UPS, FedEx, rideshares, and food delivery enter or cross a residential neighborhood primarily inhabited by people who cherish being able to walk, bike, or skateboard to work, entertainment, university, or the grocery store. As UDC commissioners, you may think that traffic management is not part of your purview. However, the design of the building grossly affects how traffic will impact not only the James Madison Park neighborhood, but also the East Mifflin Bike Boulevard, which is one of the city's main bike thoroughfares through the Isthmus. For example, we might suggest that motorized vehicle access from East Washington could greatly minimize the motorized vehicular impact on the neighborhood, even though this change would require a major overhaul of the layout of the lower 2 stories. So when the commission later review the request for excess height, we ask you to evaluate how much the current design's impact on the neighborhood detracts from its exceptional design criterion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all for our speakers. If anybody has a specific question for Bob, while it's on your mind, feel free to raise your hand. Any general comments from the commission or questions? Jessica?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. Low-income housing, thank you for that. I really hope to see 3-bedroom units in the plans. I realize this is presentational, so we're not quite seeing that yet. I just had a question about, I think the corner element where you've got the vertical elements that look kind of like folded origami elements. Those are quite lovely. And I think it makes sense to make the corner something different than the rest of the building. I did want to ask about how much glazing there is. In plan, those units are pretty small. And some of them, like one wall of the bedroom is glazing from floor to ceiling. It just, I'm not an apartment real estate developer, but I wonder if that's worth reviewing as far as how easy it is to place furniture and have privacy with quite that much glazing. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I often wonder, especially in the spring and the summertime, how I could stand having a bedroom with the floor to ceiling glass in it. I'm glad I don't have one. Lois? There you go.
There you go. I think we clicked on the same time. Yep. So remind me, is Hancock one way? It's one way coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can respond,
yeah,
Lois, yes,
so,
it is. It's one way coming towards East Washington.
Right. And I think that the development across the street, we had similar challenges. And it is a concern of neighbors that, you know, you're always having to come down that way. So if there's an option and you could present it next time, that would be appreciated. And I think it is important to have those plans that show traffic patterns when you come back, and shade studies. Other than that, you know, is you know, if this was just sitting on in a field somewhere, it is a beautiful building, I think. And you know, it is big, but you know, as we've seen from the neighborhood development plan, this is relatively within the, you know, the expectations of what we thought we'd see after the development across the street. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Tom.
Thanks, Cliff. Yeah, I guess I would echo the fact that it's a very handsome building, and we'd like, you know, that's good. Question on the parking. You said roughly 125 units. What's the expected number of parking spaces in the underground component? Is it okay?
Yeah, I can respond to that, Tom, and also I can take a second after that to talk about the access to the parking. So,
if you would, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yep. So we're, for a variety of reasons, we're intentionally intending to build far fewer parking stalls than we otherwise would. So we're expecting somewhere between 70 to 90 parking stalls.
Less than 1-to-1. Okay.
Yeah, far less than 1-to-1. It's, you know, as Bob mentioned, it is half a block from the Mifflin Street bike corridor. It's directly affronting East Washington Avenue and the future home of BRT. And it's also walking distance to the Capitol Square, with many of the service sector jobs that are around the Capitol. So we think there's an opportunity to build less parking here and have this development be less reliant on single occupant vehicles, which hopefully will eliminate or mitigate some of the issues with traffic on the neighborhood. The other thing that we had sort of preliminarily thrown out to the city in a DAP meeting was whether or not there was an opportunity to look at the one-way configuration of this block of Hancock Street, so that vehicles did not have to go through the neighborhood to access it. But because of the grading on the site, we have to put the access into the underground parking at the low point of the site. So if we put it on East Washington Avenue, we would have to have fairly extensive ramping to try and get underneath the first floor slab, which would really negatively impact and take away a lot of the St. John's floor space and partnering space. So as we've looked at this, the only way to make the parking feasible and maintain the uses above is to put the entrance at the low point of the site.
Okay, well, I appreciate those comments. Thank you. I particularly appreciate, I was hoping it was a less than 1-to-1 ratio, given its proximity to BRT, the square, et cetera. So that's good.
Great, thanks. Do you have another comment, Lois? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick is I'm sorry, I forgot to say this in Tom, your comment about parking reminded me is when we don't have a lot of parking and people are calling ride shares and having other, maybe deliveries and things, I'm wondering also in the presentation in the next one to see where there's an opportunity for trucks to pull over or rideshare vehicles to pull up to. That will be really important on this very busy corridor.
If you have a response or a concept of loading and stuff, you can let us know now. Otherwise, we'll turn it over to Russell.
The only thing I would say is that I completely agree with what Lois just said, and Bob in the neighborhood had mentioned that very early on. And so we're engaging KL Engineering to do a traffic study and impact analysis, as well as the traffic demand management plan. So those are some of the details that we'll work through and get some professional consultants in to help us understand more closely.
Okay. Because I don't believe you can park and load and have deliveries on East Washington. As I recall, I don't think there's any on-street parking there. No. Okay. Russell.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of comments. When we first received this, I struggled a little bit with. It's a really challenging mission you have here to reflect the church's legacy on that site, and I think the stained glass is a really wonderful touch, and I just want to commend you for that idea. It's a very modern take on that, and I really appreciate it. I have a question for, I think, both the development team and the architect, and I'm not asking anyone to reveal any secrets or anything, but this is such an important topic in our city right now that I just want to sort of ask about it directly. How does the architecture of this building support what I see as the main mission of low-income housing? Can you speak to how this building that we're seeing before us and the architecture of this building supports that mission?
Absolutely. I can start and then have the architects chime in as well. The big thing, and this speaks to one of the comments about the windows, is we really want to emphasize the warmth and the authenticity of the material. So not using a lot of metal panel, not using blank facades, really looking to add that warmth, those textures, and providing access with the outdoor space that was mentioned on the second floor, as well as some of the balconies, but also then the larger windows, bringing that natural light in really having that sort of natural warmth that comes through with that, just to trying to create as welcoming and warm and comforting of a project that isn't, stale and metal and sort of immaterial. And I don't know if Brian or Andy has anything else that they want to add specific to the architecture.
No, I don't.
I think, we're approaching it as it's kind of an unusual mix of programmatic functions. So, you're trying to be very respectful, obviously, of the church and of the history that is, St. John's on the site, and certainly we're trying to create a project that's respectful of those who will be within the residents themselves, and trying to create a project that's, like Mark was saying, welcoming and warm, and trying to keep the materials at a level of quality that is, again, fitting with St. John's and with a project of this scale. So I think it's certainly a challenging project to kind of weave this selection of materials to be fitting for every component of the project that's involved.
And this is Peter. I'll add, one of the things that was important to us is, choosing material that'll be durable and stand the test of time. That's one reason we've been so excited to partner with Mark and Brad and even Potter Lawson with their long history here, because we want to make sure that this stays affordable, it's well maintained, it's durable, and it's beautiful for the next 100+ years. And so choosing those materials that'll really last.
Thank you all for fielding that question. I just want to, follow up by saying I really commend this project for that goal about the residents you hope to house, and then also the architecture. I just am not quite sure how they relate, and I'm not sure they have to relate, but I just was curious to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Russell, that a one residential market rate apartment building has to look different from one that maybe has some lower rents. Maybe it's good that you don't distinguish one as low income and the other as high end. I don't think anybody's goal is to assign any kind of a stigma through building design. Okay. Shane, go ahead.
Sure. I'll just preface this by saying I don't know if anything here that I'm going to say is going to be helpful to you, but I've been very much kind of looking forward to the conversation around this project tonight. Just as you were saying, with kind of that mix of program being so unique, I've had kind of a range of emotions and reactions as I've looked at your proposal. I think, just kind of jumping to the end, I guess, I think you're on the right track. And I think when you consider sustainability, resiliency, how the use of the building could change over time, choosing those quality materials and really emphasizing that is the right move. I think initially when I consider the function of the church and the community spaces and think about it as more of a cultural project, you kind of squint at it and it seems a little safe maybe. As much as I like the stained glass kind of effect and the interpretation of that. And I think it is it's a pretty bold move, and it's really nicely done. I like where you're headed with it. But as a whole, from other angles of the project, it feels more like the residential kind of program of the project. So yeah, I keep going back and forth because then I do think we're looking at kind of a zoomed out rendering, and the actual like light and tactile experience of that space is going to be really fantastic. I think it's important. I like this sort of very clean plinth that you've created with some of the garden spaces you've described. I think if you are using stone on the building, it would be lovely to see that stone carried through down to that pedestrian level, and just make sure it's kind of at the forefront of the elements like the wall, places where you can sort of sit and touch and see it up close. So yeah, I think that's all I have for tonight. I think it's very interesting project, but I do like that you're emphasizing quality of materials and kind of coming full circle to Russell's last point and Cliff's last point about it feeling like a quality place. Will give it that long life for decades down the road. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you.
Cliff, if I could just add one thing. If we flip to slide 14, which is the second to last slide, it gives you a little bit of a closer view on that corner. We are intending for that corner element to be a couple more down, I think one more after this. Yeah, so this shows you we are intending for that corner element beneath the church's space to be stone. And the picture you see here is actually from a church that was built in Seattle, which is sort of the inspiration for this, where they did those, vertical stained glass of different sizes and colors. And this photo, I think, just does a really good job of showing you how much warmth and character and life that brings through. So still have to dive into all the details of what that looks like here, but just wanted to kind of point out that this was an actual church that was done in Seattle and used as the inspiration for what we're hoping we can accomplish here.
Thank you. I did notice on the renderings where you where along Hancock Street, the brick element and the corner element are kind of separated by a recessed balcony. It's kind of a nice detail, and it looks like on the floor plan there are some balconies along East Washington, and maybe a slot that's not shown on the renderings at this time. I know it's informational, and you got a lot of development to do, but that was, I think, kind of a nice way of separating those two elements with a slight recess and balcony, like you did on the Hancock Street rendering. Okay, any other questions or comments? Now's the time. Nope. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing this with us. We look forward to seeing it as it develops.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You bet. Okay. Number 12 was referred. That brings us to Secretary's report and business by members.
As far as the Secretary's report, just wanted to note that we're in the interview process for the UDC Secretary, and I'll have an update hopefully at an upcoming meeting.
Okay. Fantastic. And if you did have a chance to look at the email that Kevin sent, we are being compelled to take a vote. I know we before we said, well, we'll just kind of stay with the status quo because the status quo is going to be virtual. But now I think they would like us to specifically express our desire whether to go back to the municipal building on a cold Wednesday night in December, or would you rather stay home in the comfort of your living room or den or your kitchen or whatever it is? I guess we should probably have some motion and then discussion, or we can certainly just have discussion if anybody's got any questions or suggestions before we make a motion.
Cliff, I have a quick question. What is the time frame for when the change would happen?
I don't remember. Do you recall, Kevin?
I believe this is for, I'm going to pull up that email here in just a second. I'm having yet another technical difficulties. I have far better luck at these meetings when I'm in my home office and my actual office here. So let me pull up the email. There is a correspondence, but this is a 2022 for next year. And as soon as I guess we get the okay from the council that boards and commissions can start to do this, it would be a future item. So I understand the request is going forward, at some point in 2022. I'm going to pull up the email that we put in the Legistar file here in just a moment. And essentially, as I understand it, it's the default for 2022. So I don't see a specific date. I think, as I see this is really what's going to be the default position for the commission. And if there was a need to vary from that for a different meeting, certainly would want to have, plenty of notice in advance.
Right. So our next meeting is the 15th, and then after that, looks like it's January 12th, I think. Yes, January 12th. Okay, so Russell,
Just to get things.
Can we unmute? Stefan, can we unmute everyone for this?
Yeah. Let's see.
Get everybody's vocal reactions at the same time, real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should have all just received the prompt. There we go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russell.
I was just
we'll
going to
go in order, but this way we don't
I was
have
just
to
going to
mute
get
and
things
unmute.
moving and make a motion. As much as I want to see if any of you people really exist in real life, I think it's irresponsible right now to sort of blaze the trail of getting the public interfacing and in public, given the uncertainties of viral things. So I just make a motion to be virtual for this meeting.
I would second that. For the reason it's we're not just voting for ourselves, but we're voting for all the public members who may want to come in comment. So in that case, I think we should err on the side of safety for them as well.
Okay.
I'd even make the overall comment of just talking about sustainability. It's less cars on the road, it's less emissions, it's more use of space that they can use their downtown spaces for other things. If maybe they're growing in their staff, less conference rooms. I think just sustainability wise in downtown. And plus Lois wants to walk around downtown. She wants less cars down there anyways. So it's really just a benefit.
It's so much safer for me.
Hey, time out, Greg. That's not a friendly amendment to my motion because I would ride my bike to the meeting. So
that's
I'm not
okay,
concerned
then.
about the cars. No, I'm just I'll take that friendly amendment, Greg.
I'd get a ride with Russell on his handlebars. Yeah, I hope that there's an opportunity maybe to revisit this in 6 months.
Yeah, I would, Cliff, that was my thought. I've been diving into this in January. Doesn't feel quite right, but holding out for a whole year, I would hope we could revisit in 6 months as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You should be unmuted, Christian, if you had a comment there.
Yeah. I've thought about this a lot, and given the current situation and the ongoing issues with the pandemic, it seems prudent to continue the way we're going. But had this been winding down and things were getting more back to normal in an everyday world, I can see where from an efficiency, sustainability standpoint, that continuing in this way makes all the sense in the world. I am firmly of the belief that meeting and interacting with people face to face is the better experience. I really do. The technical glitches and stuff that go along with doing it this way, notwithstanding, we know we had those when we were meeting face to face too. But I just believe that the act of looking somebody in the eye when you're dealing with them on these important projects and vice versa is really important. And I just feel bad if we've slipped into a world where this is all of our interactions are electronically and on screens. I have friends and family dealing with this in many different ways, and people with kids and dealing with it in school. And, I just think that while the fact that this technology exists to make this possible and to continue doing what we do, I firmly believe that it is maybe a more efficient process, but not a better process. And that's just me, but that's how I feel.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Then unless I see a raising of a hand by unanimous consent, the motion passes, and this commission's direction is to continue with virtual meetings. Looks like you're not off the hook yet, Stefan.
I would miss you all too much, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And Julie, I mean, when we met in real life, we didn't get to see you. So, you're going to be dealing with us more, real time, at least for the next few months.
Well, this is delightful for me. I can be in your company and not have to put on my hard pants.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other announcements, questions, or consideration items for future agenda? That would be number 14. Okay. No, so Craig, next meeting on the 15th will be your last meeting then?
No, I can still keep coming for a while. Kevin and I just need to talk to see where he is in the replacement process. So a lot of my traveling is starting to wind down again. And most of my really busy time was these last couple of months. So I might be able to stick around longer if there's no replacement. It's just I'll work with Kevin to see how long it takes. Not that he's going to drag his feet, I know.
No, and in fact, I'll be able to do I believe I'll be able to have a more formal update here at the next meeting. Okay. So we'll make a point in the secretary's report in 2 weeks.
Great. Well, we appreciate your participation. It would be awfully strange to have a new member that none of us have actually ever seen in person before. I guess the only person who fits that category is Stefan.
Do I qualify as a member now?
Oh yeah, honorary for sure, with all the benefits and privileges and lucrative income. You're getting paid for this. What am I talking about?
Cliff, I do have a question or possible future agenda topic. I guess I would appreciate some training or some perspective from the city on what low-income housing is and how we can be empowered to evaluate that as an urban design topic or criteria I mean, some questions that I have, some basic questions are about, can a development team say that a building is going to be low income housing, so and so much percent of the building, and that pulls at our heartstrings and is part of our consideration, but then how long does that last? What is the time component of that? And anyway, it's just something that I don't have a technical background in, and I just wonder if there's someone at the city that could present that for our basic education.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's probably different colleagues, and maybe early in the new year. I'm thinking that initially a discussion with our community development office that does a lot of the funding of the programs and kind of talk about those options. But I think also then represented from the attorney's office, because there are limitations in terms of what we can do with a land use approval and requiring certain rents and so forth. So I think it's a good discussion item, and I can kind of work to coordinate that for a meeting early in 2022.
Yeah, it would be good also to have the discussion as to what would be under our purview. Given the present ordinance versus the plan commission. And maybe we could be informed that actually this is getting considered, but it's the plan commission who has the authority to ask certain questions or expect certain commitments from the developers. But it is good to know where in the city these responsibilities and authorities fall.
I'll work to coordinate something. So I'll coordinate with the chair, and we'll find a time early in 2022.
Okay. Anything else? Very good. We got through it pretty well. Thank you, Kevin and Julie. Stefan, we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. So 7:42 by unanimous consent, we're adjourned. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.